All right, so get ready because we're about to take a trip back in time, like millions of
Oh,
years.
yeah.
You guys sent in a ton of
Ton
research
of research on.
on the KPG extinction,
Yeah.
the dinosaur apocalypse. We're going deep on this one. The theories, the debates,
Right.
how life on Earth managed to come back from all of that.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. It wasn't just the dinosaurs that went extinct.
Oh, right.
We're talking a massive loss of biodiversity here.
Okay.
75% or more of all species on Earth just gone.
So not just like a few missing dinos, this was
Uh,
like a total reset for the planet.
yeah.
We're working with an excerpt from the Spanish Wikipedia article on this event, the
Okay.
Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event. It is packed with information. What are the big questions we should be thinking about as we go through this?
Well, first we got to figure out what caused this mass extinction. Was it like a super sudden thing?
Right.
Or was it a slower decline? And then how did life recover
Okay.
and evolve after something so devastating? It's a big one. The KPG extinction really set the stage for the world we live in today.
Right.
So understanding it helps us see the story of life on Earth in a whole new way.
That's kind of amazing to think about. Let's start with the prime suspect in
Okay.
this prehistoric whodunit, the asteroid impact. I mean, that's the one everybody's heard of.
Right. That's the one that everybody knows. The impact theory is
Mm.
definitely the most popular one. And there's good reason for that. Back in the 1980s,
Okay.
Luis and Walter Alvarez,
Okay.
these scientists proposed this idea
Yeah.
based on something pretty strange, a thin layer of iridium
Uh-huh.
and rock layers dating back to the KPG boundary.
Okay.
Iridium's rare here, but common in asteroids.
Interesting.
Yeah,
And then there's the Chicxulub crater in the Yucatan Peninsula,
right?
discovered in the 90s.
Yep,
That seems like pretty solid proof.
it's pretty compelling.
Yeah.
Imagine a crater 180 kilometers wide.
Whoa. Yeah.
That's like driving from DC to Philly. Wow.
Without leaving a giant hole in the ground.
That's going to leave a mark.
Yeah. But hold on. If the evidence for the asteroid is so strong,
Right.
why is there still debate about the extinction's timeline?
Well, some researchers think the extinction was really fast,
Okay.
like a boom sudden thing,
Okay.
triggered by the impact. And the evidence for that's in the geology.
Okay.
The sudden disappearance of all these species and the debris layer from the impact.
Right.
But others think it was more gradual, like maybe millions of years,
Oh, wow.
with the asteroid being the final blow.
So how do we figure out which is right?
Yeah, it's tough.
It's not like we have eyewitness accounts.
Nope. That's one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah.
The fossil record for dinosaurs is a mess.
Really?
They're super rare. It's hard to pinpoint when they actually disappear.
I see.
And then there's the Deccan traps
Okay.
to think about, too.
The Deccan traps.
Yeah, massive volcanic eruptions around the same time.
Oh, right. Those giant eruptions in India, they must have been spewing some crazy stuff into the air, right?
Oh, yeah. Tons of ash, gases, and lava.
Wow.
It probably messed up the climate and the environment pretty bad.
So is it possible that it was both?
Possible.
The asteroid and the Deccan traps?
Yeah, like a 1-2 punch.
A double whammy.
Yeah.
Huh.
Some scientists think that the Deccan traps were already stressing the planet,
Okay.
making life super vulnerable to something like an asteroid.
Right.
It's like a world already dealing with climate change, and then,
Oh, wow.
boom, a giant rock from space.
Yeah,
It might have been too much for a lot of species.
yeah, that makes sense. It's like if you're already sick and then you get hit with something worse,
Exactly.
you're more likely to get really knocked down.
Exactly.
And we can't forget about other things, too, like
Like
sea levels dropping,
Oh, yeah.
which would have shrunk habitats.
What habitats?
And added even more pressure.
More pressure is probably a perfect storm.
Wow.
A bunch of factors that caused the KPG extinction.
Okay, so we've got a complicated situation here.
Yeah.
An asteroid impact, volcanoes erupting, and other environmental changes.
It all happened around the same time.
Things were so simple back then.
Not at all. It makes you wonder if the dinosaurs would have gone extinct even without the asteroid.
Oh, that's a good point. Because of all those other factors.
Yeah, because of all those other things. That's a big question.
That is a big question. And that brings us to the next thing.
Okay,
What happened after?
right.
Even though it was like the end of the world,
Yeah,
life on Earth survived.
it did. Life on Earth is tenacious.
Yeah.
It found a way.
So who were the lucky ones?
Well, the mammals definitely made the most of it.
Yeah.
But they weren't the only ones.
Okay.
Insects are incredibly adaptable
That's true.
and resilient.
Yeah, they can survive anywhere.
Yeah, and they probably would have been able to survive on the little food that was
Right.
left after the extinction.
That makes sense. What about other animals?
Reptiles also showed they were tough.
Oh, yeah.
Turtles, crocodiles, lizards.
Right.
They were all there during the dinosaur times, and they made it through.
Wow.
They could already handle a lot of different conditions.
Okay.
And they could go a long time without food.
So it's not about being big and strong.
Nope.
It's about being able to adapt.
Exactly.
Make do with what you've got.
Resourcefulness.
Okay.
And of course, the birds. The descendants of dinosaurs.
Oh, right, the
They
birds.
were warm-blooded with feathers, and a lot of them could fly,
Yeah.
which probably helped them escape
Okay.
the worst of it and find food in new places.
Right.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
So we know who survived,
right.
but how did they actually pull through?
That's the big question.
What adaptations?
Well, size was a big one.
Okay.
Smaller animals need less food.
Right.
They can reproduce faster,
That makes sense.
which would have been really helpful when there wasn't much food around.
Yeah.
Plus, they can hide in places bigger animals can't.
So think small and be nimble.
Exactly.
Like those mammals. Smart.
Yeah.
Were there any other important adaptations?
Yeah, their diet.
Oh,
They had to
okay.
be flexible with what they ate. Animals that could eat lots of different things.
Oh, like omnivores?
Yeah, like omnivores. They had a better chance than picky eaters.
That makes sense. If you're only eating one thing and it's
Yeah.
gone,
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Okay, so being picky was not good.
Not at all.
Got it.
And being able to burrow or find shelter,
Oh, right, to protect themselves.
yeah, from the crazy conditions after the impact.
Yeah, that makes sense. Find a place to hunker down
Yeah.
and ride out the storm.
Yeah. But even after surviving all of that,
Right.
the world was completely different.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It wasn't a quick fix. The Deccan traps kept erupting
Right.
for thousands of years after the asteroid.
Really?
Yeah. It was constant instability.
Oh, wow.
The climate was all over the place, the landscapes were changing,
Right.
and the food webs were completely messed up.
So even though the asteroid was the first big shock,
Right.
the planet was still in chaos for a while.
For a long time. It was a wild time for survival.
Wow.
The survivors had to be adaptable
Makes sense.
and resourceful.
Yeah.
They had to constantly evolve to meet new challenges.
So it must have been like super dynamic for evolution.
Yeah, all that pressure led to new traits, new
No.
adaptations.
Wow.
That's what led to the amazing diversity we see today.
So in a way, the mass extinction was like a reset button for evolution.
Yeah.
Like nature was saying, all right,
Right.
show me what you got.
Exactly.
I love that. That's amazing. And scientists can actually see these changes
They-
looking at the fossils, right?
Yes, they could see how mammal skulls and teeth and limbs changed,
Okay.
which shows how their diets and behaviors and lifestyles evolved.
That's so cool.
It's like watching evolution happen fast.
Yeah, it's not just about surviving. It's about how they changed,
Exactly.
they adapted.
It's about evolution and extinction.
Yeah, it shows how strong life on Earth is.
It does. It's incredibly resilient
Right.
and adaptable.
It finds a way to survive and thrive.
Yeah, and evolve into these incredible new forms.
Now, I want to go back to the Deppen traps for a second.
Okay.
We talked about how they may have made the extinction worse.
Right.
But could they have also helped some species survive?
That's interesting. They were definitely destructive.
Yeah.
But they might have actually helped some species adapt and survive.
How?
Remember, volcanic eruptions are terrible in the short term,
Right.
but they also make the soil better over time.
So while they were causing problems in the atmosphere, they were helping the ground below.
Exactly. The ash and lava
Yeah.
broke down and made nutrients for plants.
So it's like nature giving a little good with the bad.
It's like a silver lining.
That's amazing how nature balances things out.
It is.
So the Deccan traps might have been part of the problem,
Right.
but also part of the solution.
It shows how complicated things are
Yeah.
and how different events can affect evolution.
Life on Earth is a web,
It is.
and sometimes even the bad things can have unexpected consequences.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about who survived and how they adapted.
Right.
But what about the ones who didn't make it?
Okay.
What can we learn from them?
That's a big question. The extinction of all those species
Yeah.
at the KPG boundary
Right,
shows us that even the strongest creatures
right,
can be vulnerable.
yeah.
Even the mighty dinosaurs weren't invincible.
So what made them so susceptible to these events?
Well, their size was definitely a factor.
Right.
Bigger animals need more food,
Yeah,
and they reproduce slower.
okay.
So when things get tough,
Yeah,
they're more vulnerable.
makes sense.
And like we said before, specialization can be a problem.
Right, the picky eaters.
Exactly. If your one food source is gone,
You're done.
you're done.
And the dinosaurs, they were really specialized.
Right, they were adapted for specific things.
It was good for them when things were stable,
But
but then the world changed.
They couldn't adapt fast enough.
So being specialized can help you in the short term,
It can.
but it can also hurt you in the long run.
Exactly. Adaptability and flexibility are
Ah,
what help you survive long term.
got it.
And another thing that probably hurt the dinosaurs was being stuck in one place. When their habitats were destroyed,
Yeah.
they had nowhere to go.
It's like putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
And then the basket breaks.
And then it breaks.
You need to have a backup plan.
You need diversity
Right.
and adaptability to survive.
Both for individuals and for the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. The KPG extinction reminds us that life is connected.
Yeah,
Even small changes can have big effects
that's true.
on the whole system.
Okay, so we've talked about the survivors,
Right.
how they adapted, and what caused some to go extinct. But
Right.
what about the world itself? How
Yeah.
did the planet
It was
recover?
a long process. It took millions of years.
Wow.
Right after the impact, it was a mess.
Yeah.
Dark, covered in debris.
I can't even imagine.
It was a totally different world. But life found a way.
It always
It does.
does.
Small organisms,
Like what?
like bacteria and fungi,
Oh, okay.
they broke down the debris and made new soil for plants.
So even when things are at their worst,
Yeah,
life starts over.
it does. And as the plants came back,
Yeah.
they created homes and food for the
Oh,
animals so they
wow.
could spread out and diversify.
It's like a forest growing back after a
Yeah,
fire.
it is. And as the ecosystems recovered,
Yeah.
new species evolved.
And filled those empty spaces.
Exactly.
That's
The
incredible.
KPG extinction was a turning point.
Yeah.
It was a time of loss, but also opportunity.
Right.
It led to the rise of mammals
Right.
and the world we live in today.
So we lost the dinosaurs.
We did.
But their loss made way for everything else.
It did. It's a reminder that life is strong
Right.
and it can adapt and create new, amazing things. Yeah.
That's an awesome way to think about it. We'll be right back after a short break to explore even more about what happened after this event. Welcome back to our deep dive on the KPG extinction. Last time we talked about the planet being in total chaos,
Right.
a giant asteroid impact,
Huge.
volcanic eruptions,
Yeah.
all sorts of environmental craziness.
It was wild.
But we know that life on Earth is tough.
Oh, it is.
It's a
They
survivor.
found a way.
So who were the lucky ones who made it through this apocalyptic event?
Well, like we said, mammals definitely took advantage of the situation.
Right.
But they weren't alone.
Oh,
Insects, for example, they're so adaptable
Yeah.
and resilient.
they're pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and they probably would have survived on whatever little food was left
Right.
after the extinction.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about other animals, though?
Reptiles did pretty well, too.
Okay.
Think about it. Turtles,
Yeah.
crocodiles, lizards.
They were all around back then.
Yeah, they were around during the dinosaur times, and they survived the extinction, too.
Wow, they're tough.
Yeah, they could already handle all kinds of conditions,
Yeah.
and they could go for a long time without eating.
Though it's not just about size and strength.
No.
It's about being able to adapt.
Exactly. It's about being resourceful,
Right.
making the most of what you have.
Okay.
And, of course, there's the birds.
Oh, right, the
The
birds.
dinosaurs' descendants.
Yeah.
They were already warm-blooded with feathers,
Right.
and a lot of them could fly.
Right.
That probably helped them escape the worst of the devastation
Okay.
and find new food sources.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we know who survived,
We do.
but how did they actually make it?
Good question.
What adaptations?
Well, one key thing was their size.
Okay.
Smaller animals don't need as much food,
Makes sense.
and they reproduce faster,
Right.
which is really helpful when food is scarce.
Right.
Plus, they can hide in places bigger animals can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So think small and nimble.
Exactly.
Like those clever mammals.
Yeah.
Smart. Were there any other super important adaptations?
Yeah. Their diet.
Okay.
They had to be flexible about what they ate.
Oh,
Animals that could eat a bunch of different things.
like omnivores?
Yeah, exactly. Like omnivores. They had a
Yeah.
much better chance
Right.
than those picky eaters.
Right, because if your one food source is gone,
Then you're out of luck.
you're done for.
Yeah. So being a picky eater,
Not a good strategy.
not a good strategy at all.
Not at all.
Okay.
Being able to burrow
Oh, right.
or find some kind of shelter.
Yeah, to protect themselves.
Yeah, from those harsh conditions after the impact.
Makes sense. Find a way to hunker down and ride it out.
Exactly.
But even after surviving all of that,
Yeah.
the world was completely different.
Oh, yeah, the world was transformed.
It wasn't a quick fix.
No, it wasn't. The Deccan traps were still erupting?
Yeah, for thousands of years after the asteroid.
No way.
Yeah, it was just constant instability.
Wow.
The climate was all over the place.
Yeah.
The landscapes were changing.
Oh,
The
right.
food webs were all messed up.
So even though the asteroid was the first big shock,
Right.
the planet was still in upheaval for a long time after.
For a very long time. It was a challenging time to be alive.
Wow.
Yeah, the survivors had to be adaptable
Makes sense.
and resourceful.
Okay.
They had to constantly evolve to survive those new challenges.
It must have been an incredibly dynamic period for evolution.
It was. All that pressure
Yeah.
led to the development of new traits,
Right.
new adaptations.
Wow.
And that's ultimately what gave rise to the diversity of life we see today.
So the mass extinction,
Yeah,
it was like hitting the reset button on evolution.
It was-
like nature was saying, okay,
right.
let's see what you got.
Exactly. And what's really amazing
Yeah.
is that scientists can actually track those evolutionary changes.
Really?
Yeah, by studying the fossil record,
Okay.
they can see how mammal skulls and teeth and limbs changed over time,
Okay.
which reflects the evolution of new diets,
Right.
behaviors, and lifestyles.
That's incredible.
Like watching evolution in fast forward.
Yeah. It's not just about who survived. It's
Right.
about how those survivors changed,
Exactly.
adapted to this new world.
It's a story of evolution as much as it is about extinction.
That's a really good point. And it just shows how resilient life on Earth is.
It does. It's incredibly resilient
Yeah.
and adaptable.
It finds a way not just to survive, but
But-
to thrive
Yeah,
and evolve into new and amazing forms.
incredible forms.
Now, I want to circle back to those Deccan Traps eruptions for a second.
Okay,
We've talked about how they might have contributed to the extinction,
right.
but is there any evidence that they could have also helped some species survive?
That's an interesting question. While the Deccan traps were definitely destructive,
Yeah,
there's a chance they might have inadvertently helped some species adapt.
really?
Yeah, and even survive. Remember, volcanic eruptions are devastating in the short term,
Right.
but over time, they enrich the soil.
So while they were causing all this chaos in the atmosphere,
Yeah.
they were also fertilizing the ground below.
Exactly. The ash and the lava they spewed out
Yeah.
broke down into nutrients,
Okay.
which would have been great for plant growth.
So it's like nature's way of providing a silver lining.
Yeah, it's like a silver lining to a very dark cloud.
It's amazing how nature balances destruction with creation.
It is,
So the Deccan Traps might have contributed to the extinction in some ways,
right?
but also helped some species recover and thrive afterward.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
Wow.
It just shows how complex and unexpected the forces that shape evolution can be.
Life on Earth is this incredibly complex web.
It is.
And even the most destructive events can have these unforeseen consequences.
That's right.
Okay, so we've covered who survived,
Yeah.
how they adapted,
Uh-huh.
and what caused some to go extinct.
Right.
But what about the ones that didn't make it? What can their extinction teach us about the fragility of life and what can lead to its demise?
That's a really important question. The extinction of so many species at the KPG boundary
Yeah,
serves as a stark reminder that even the most dominant
right.
and successful creatures,
Like the dinosaurs.
yeah, even the dinosaurs,
Wow.
can be vulnerable
Yeah,
to these sudden
okay.
and dramatic changes in their environment.
So even the mighty dinosaurs
Even the dinosaurs.
weren't immune to extinction. What were some of the things that might have made them more susceptible to the events of the KPG?
Well, their size definitely played a role.
Okay,
Larger animals need more food,
right.
and they have slower reproductive rates,
Okay,
which makes them more vulnerable when resources become scarce
right.
or when there's environmental stress.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And as we discussed earlier, specialization can be a double-edged sword.
Right, those picky eaters.
Exactly. If your only food source disappears,
Yeah, you're out of luck.
you're in trouble.
And in the case of the dinosaurs,
Yeah,
many of them were highly specialized
that's right.
for their particular environments.
Yeah, and that worked great for them in stable conditions.
Right.
But when things changed quickly,
Yeah.
they couldn't adapt.
So being specialized can be a winning strategy for a while.
It can.
But it can also make you more vulnerable in the long run
Right.
if your environment changes drastically.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder that adaptability and flexibility are really key to long-term survival.
Absolutely.
And another factor that might have contributed to the dinosaurs' demise
Yeah.
was their reliance on specific habitats
That's right.
and ecosystems.
When those habitats were disrupted
Yeah,
by the impact and its aftermath,
yeah.
they didn't have anywhere to go.
It's like putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
And if that basket gets destroyed, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
You need to have a backup plan.
You need diversity
Right.
and adaptability to survive.
Both for individuals and for whole ecosystems.
Exactly. The more diverse an ecosystem is,
Yeah.
the more resilient it will be to change.
It's like having multiple backup plans.
Precisely.
I like that. The KPG extinction is a powerful reminder
It is.
that life on Earth is this interconnected
Yeah.
web.
Yeah.
And even the smallest changes can have ripple effects throughout the entire system.
They can.
Okay, so we've talked about who survived,
Mhm.
how they adapted, and the factors that led to extinction.
Okay.
But I'm curious about the world itself.
Okay.
How did the planet recover from such a devastating event?
Well, the recovery process was slow
Okay.
and gradual, or it took
Okay.
millions of years
Wow.
for ecosystems to fully rebuild and diversify.
Okay.
In the immediate aftermath of the impact,
Yeah.
the planet was just desolate
Yeah.
and chaotic,
Yeah. That's-
shrouded in darkness and choked with debris.
It's hard to imagine a world so different from what we know today.
It was a time of profound transformation.
Wow.
But even amidst all that devastation, life persisted.
It always finds a way.
It does. Small organisms,
Like what?
like bacteria and fungi,
Okay.
they played a crucial role in breaking down all that debris
Okay.
and creating fertile soil for new plant life to emerge.
So even in the darkest of times, life finds a way to start anew.
Exactly. And as plant life slowly returned,
Yeah.
it created habitats and food sources for the surviving animals,
Okay.
allowing them to spread out and diversify.
It's like watching a forest regrow after a fire.
It is. It's slow at first,
Yeah.
but eventually life reclaims the land.
That's amazing.
And as those ecosystems recovered and diversified,
Yeah.
new species evolved to fill the empty spaces left by the extinction.
Wow.
The KPG extinction really marked a turning point in the history of life on Earth.
It did.
It was a time of tremendous loss,
Yeah.
but also incredible opportunity.
Right.
A reset button
Yeah.
that led to the rise of mammals
Right.
and the evolution of the world we know today.
So while we might mourn the loss of the dinosaurs,
Yeah.
we can also marvel at the resilience of life
Yeah,
and its
absolutely.
ability to adapt and create these new and wondrous forms.
That's right.
It's a story that continues to unfold,
It does.
and we're all a part of it.
We are.
We'll be right back after a short break to delve even deeper into the aftermath of this extraordinary event. Okay, we are back with the final part of our deep dive into the KPG extinction. We've covered the impact, the survivors, the recovery.
Right.
But before we finish, I want to
Okay.
step back
Okay.
and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's easy to focus on the details,
Right,
but it's important to look at the long-term consequences
right.
of the KPG extinction.
Okay, so the extinction wiped out the dinosaurs
Right.
and mammals took over.
Yeah.
But what were some of the other big changes?
Well, it had a huge impact on plants.
Oh, okay.
Remember all those wildfires and the darkness
Yeah.
from the impact and the Deccan Traps eruptions?
Right.
That would have destroyed tons of forests
Right.
and vegetation.
So it wasn't just the animals that were affected.
It was the whole plant kingdom.
Wow.
And losing all those plants would have had a domino effect on the
Okay.
whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
It would have changed the food and shelter.
It's like pulling a thread on a tapestry and the
Yes.
whole thing unravels.
Exactly. And for plants,
Yeah.
the KPG extinction seems to have favored certain types,
Oh, okay.
like ferns.
Ferns.
Yeah, they can spread quickly in disturbed areas.
Oh, okay.
So they did really well after the extinction.
So they were like the first ones back.
Yeah, they were like the Comineers.
Reclaiming the land.
Exactly. And then as things calmed down,
Right.
other plants came back and
Right.
diversified.
But it was different from
The
before.
forests and ecosystems were changed forever.
Wow.
Yeah, the plants we see today
Wow.
are a result of the KPG extinction.
It's amazing to think about that. That's something that happened millions of years ago
I know, it's crazy.
still affects us today.
And it brings up another important point.
Okay.
The KPG extinction wasn't a one-time thing.
What do you mean?
It was part of a bigger pattern
Oh, okay.
of mass extinction.
So this has happened before.
Oh, yeah. At least 5 times in
Wow.
Earth history.
So it wasn't just a dinosaur problem.
No, not at all. Each one wiped out a huge chunk of life on the planet.
Wow.
But then there were periods of recovery
Okay.
and diversification,
Okay.
which led to new and amazing life forms.
It's kind of scary to think about.
It is a little bit,
Just cycles of destruction and renewal.
but it's also important to remember that extinction is natural.
Okay.
It's part of evolution.
Okay.
It's what makes room for new species.
So even though the dinosaurs are gone,
Yeah,
their extinction made it possible for us to be here.
exactly. And it reminds us that life on Earth is always changing.
Right. Always adapting to new challenges.
The KPG extinction was a big turning point,
Right.
but it's just one part of the story
Okay.
of life on our planet.
And who knows what's next?
Exactly. The story isn't over yet.
That's exciting.
It is. But we can learn from the past,
Right.
understand what causes extinctions,
Okay.
and work towards a more sustainable future.
Yes. That's a great point.
So as we wrap up this KPG deep dive,
Okay.
what do you think is the most important thing for people to remember?
What's the big takeaway?
I think it's that life on Earth is incredibly strong
Okay.
and adaptable.
Yeah.
Even after a huge catastrophe, life finds a way.
That's true.
It's humbling and inspiring. We have to protect life on our planet
Yeah.
and work towards a future where these catastrophic events are just a distant memory.
That's a great message. It's been an incredible journey back in time.
It has.
Exploring the KPG extinctions.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course.
Keep exploring.
Yeah.
Keep questioning.
Keep learning.
And keep being amazed by the natural world.
It's an amazing place. So